Alright, everybody, another month has already come and gone. It's time to rank all the movies that I watched for the first time in March. I got over 20 titles, 25 to be exact. So let's just jump right into this from worst to best. Number 25, of course, will be Candyman 3. This movie was dreadful, poor acting, dream sequences, fake outs, low budget quality. Candyman, Tony Todd, he doesn't really give that well of a performance. They kind of changed the lore a little bit, and it pissed me off. This movie was just dreadful, so this is easily the worst of the month. So skip this movie. It is dog shit. Next up, we got The Graveyard Shift, a Stephen King adaptation, film adaptation. You got the guy from Terminator 3. You got Brad Dourif. I thought his performance was pretty awesome. He was the best part. He had the best kill. This movie's story just wasn't working for me, especially the characters. I felt they were poorly written. I didn't really know who this main guy even was. By the end of the movie, you had this character who was like the bad boss. He just turns into a villain out of nowhere. He is a complete asshole, and his accent was just driving me nuts. His character was annoying. I didn't like the characters, and I just didn't like the concept of this movie at all. It's just a big old killer rat. So, moving on. Next up, we got the Mountaintop Massacre Motel. No, I guess I said that backwards. Mountaintop Motel Massacre. Very long title. This movie is about a crazy old lady. It's basically like a psycho movie, except this woman is not really wanting to kill her victims. She wants to scare them first with like creatures and bugs, and then when they're good and scared, then she tries to pick them off. She's clearly crazy. There's this one main girl, not really main, I don't know. She's just fucking annoying. She makes women look bad. Like, this chick is terrible. Fuck that character. And then there's no really memorable kills in this movie. I think it's like all cutaway kills, and there's this whole like subplot with like voodoo at the very beginning, and then it's like at the very tail end, and it makes no sense, and it's not necessary for the film at all. It's just, what? So this chick came back from the dead, huh? It's just a dumbass ending. When you trust me, if you've seen it, what the hell does that ending even mean? What was the point of any of that? The whole movie was not about that. It was about this crazy chick putting crickets and snakes and shit into people's hotel rooms, and then walking around her tunnels underneath like she was Jason in the remake. It's just not that good of a movie. So skip this one. It is not worth watching. Now we got Return to Horror High, George Clooney's first movie, I believe. I like a couple of characters in this movie that were kind of funny and memorable, like the producer and the cop, who I believe was one of the chicks from the Brady Bunch, Marsha, one of those chicks. I don't know, I've never seen it. So, but outside of that, fuck the rest of the movie. I did not like the ending. This was not a cool twist ending. It was dumb. It's a stupid cop out. It's just annoying. It's the whole movie's a fake out. There's no good kills. It's confusing as hell what the motivation is. It's just bad. I did not like this one at all. So this is another one that I can easily tell you to just skip. Number 21, we got the Sorority House Massacre. This movie is basically like a Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street ripoff. Lots of elements taken from those movies with a lame killer and lame kills, no gore, bad acting, but it's got some gratuitous nudity. It's got some funny moments in it, some funny, unbelievable reactions from some of the characters, and some technical goofs within the film that make you laugh. So this one's very low budget looking. It's not that good of quality. So it's very much 80s cheese. So if you're into that, you might enjoy it, but don't expect much from it. So yeah, lame kills, not much to say about it. Pretty bad. Number 20, we got Night School, not the Kevin Hart comedy, the 1981 Night School. This is a movie about a killer. It's a whodunit, and I like the outfit. It's like a biker look. It's unique. I like the unique looking like Bowie knife weapon. It's like a weird giant switchblade. I don't know what it was. It was cool looking. Outside of that, and maybe the weird like kind of happy ending. It kind of ends on a high note, like a goof, like a big old laugh. It was just a funny little prank at the end that I thought was pretty funny. So I like that. But everything else, I did not care for it. This is another movie with poor acting, off-screen kills, no gore, none of that. There's a lot of off-screen decapitations. The killer in this movie wants to decapitate people, and I felt that the killer in the movie was very predictable. I guessed it almost right away. Especially by the midway point, I basically knew who it was. Number 19, we got Phantasm, a franchise I am reviewing as of this recording. I already reviewed the first one, and I was meh on it. Like, everything from here on up, is at least worth one watch. Everything below, I did not care for at all. So everything from here on up is decent. So this movie, it just, the story I did not care for. The whole cop out ending, it's confusing. There's a lot of questions raised, and they purposely don't give you answers. The tall man, he's not that interesting. He's not really that menacing to me. I don't find him scary at all. I like the little ball that like sucks your brains out and shoots it out the other end. Cool stuff like that. It's got a fantastic score that I really like. It's very like John Carpenter esque. So outside like those things I really like. There's some boobs in it if you're into that. Some odd moments. There's some charm to it. I can see why this has a cult following, but it's not one that I will ever find myself having an itch to watch again. Now that I've watched it, I can just put it down and never pick it up again. Next up, we got Chud. CHUD. Cannibalistic humanoids, underground dwellers. Is that what it stands for? Something like that. It actually has two different acronyms or definitions within the movie. It actually stands for something else, but I forget. So this one has the bad guy from White Chicks and the bad guy from Home Alone. So got some familiar faces. And this movie surprisingly takes itself very serious. I was not expecting that at all, with a name called Chud and monsters that live underneath the ground in the sewers. You would expect there to be some cheese factor to it, some funny moments, but it takes itself serious as a heart attack. Like, it is very straightforward. Everybody's taking it very serious. That blew me away. This is a very slow first act. It takes a while for things to start building up, but once you get towards the end, it starts to get a little bit more fun. The creatures definitely have the 80s cheese look to them. They look so bad, but it's kind of fun. The whole glowing eyes, just the way the monsters look. There's gory aftermath kills. There's not really gory on-screen kills, but the aftermath, you do see like innards and stuff like that. And I think that's about it. It has a decent score overall, so it's worth checking out. Next up, we got the iconic Zombie, or Zombie 2, the supposed sequel to Dawn of the Dead, I believe, by Fulci. Is that? Yeah, Lucio Fulci. This came out in '79. Isn't that the same year that Dawn of the Dead came out, or like a year later, right around the same time? So this movie about zombies, it's called Zombie. What do you expect? So this has the iconic eye kill. There's some neat on-screen gory effects that look great. They might age, but it still looks great. I would prefer aging practical effects over CGI in a horror movie any day. This has gratuitous nudity, a lot of it. It's an Italian film, and I guess Italian directors, they just not only show nudity, but they let it linger for minutes on end. There is tons of it, and you got some bizarre ass moments that you will remember forever, like sharks versus zombies. What the hell's going on there? People seem to like the music in this movie, but I found it annoying the way it was edited into the film. There's this constant like beat in the background and moments where it's just driving me nuts. I guess I'm just easily irritable. I'm finding that out about myself. So I just get easily irritated. There's this music that drove me nuts in this movie. So that's why it's probably all the way down here. But there's some cool gore. I like the third act especially. That's when things really pick up, because it's kind of slow-ish, and there's bad ADR, and there's bad acting and stuff like that. There's some pacing issues definitely. So it's a decent watch overall. So Zombie, this is where you'll be, right here. Number 16, we got Candyman Farewell to the Flesh. I really like the opening to this movie. I like the continuity within it. You got the returning guy, just a small part from the first one back in here. And you got mention of Helen. I like all that stuff. And I like that Candyman's a little bit more vicious with his kills. And you get to see some iconic things from the first one carried over, the bees and whatnot. All that stuff's cool. I just don't like the fact that there's so many jump scares in this movie, and there's no boobs. The first one had boobs. What the fuck? So yeah, I'll have a review out for Candyman 2, I'm sure, at some point, and I will save all my thoughts for that. Next up, we got the Clive Barker Nightbreed with the guy from Hellraiser Inferno. I forget his name right now, but you probably know who he is, so I'll just let you fill in the blanks. And this is a very longer than usual horror movie, and it's got like a love story in it too, just like Hellraiser. And this one has an awesome mask that Cronenberg wears. I like that mask. I like that outfit. It's pretty creepy looking, and I like the Cronenberg character. He's probably the thing that stands out the most. I like the creativity with some of the creature effects in the movie. It's very unique. It's wild, like an acid trip. Like somebody was on acid when they came up with these ideas with these creatures. I believe there was one that looked like a giant turkey that I remember. So yeah, cool creature looks. You got Doug Bradley playing one of the monsters, and it has a pretty fun wild third act. But my main issue with the movie is just I felt like it overstays its welcome. It's very long, too long. I think it should have been shortened some. Next up, we got The Green Room. This movie has a very good cast. I like all the performances in this movie. I like some of the subtle comedy within the movie, like when they're on stage and they're playing and they clearly suck. Just there's some funny moments in it. I'm not sure if they were supposed to be funny, but this movie takes some unexpected turns that I didn't see coming. And Imogen Poots, if that's how you say her name, Imogen, she's pretty gorgeous, even though she's got like a weird haircut in this one. And but this movie has hardly any gore. There's hardly any tension that I ever really felt. So that could have been if they could have like ramped up the gore and ramped up the tension, this movie would have been a lot better. But there's mainly just a lot of dogs attacking people. Number 13, we got the Poughkeepsie tapes. Did you know these were real? No, they're not. I believe that there was like all kinds of people who were like, "Oh my gosh, did you know that movie was real?" It's like bullshit. No, it's not. That would be illegal. You can't show actual deaths and shit on no. So this movie is like a fake based on true events documentary where we get to see all these tapes that this killer recorded himself of all his crimes because he's egotistical. He wants everybody to know what he's done. And there's some creepy footage. There's definitely some eerie moments. The killer stalking in the background, in the distance, targeting people, sneaking into the house. The whole killer POV thing was done pretty effectively. Next up, we got Bride of Reanimator. I like the cast continuity, and I like the K&B effects, the bride falling apart at the end. You got some cool effects sprinkled throughout here. But it's just nowhere near as funny or entertaining as the first one. Nowhere near. This one was very underwhelming, and they don't even utilize Dr. Hill's, head bat character like at all. Like you forget he's in the movie, and that's a shame. So that was just what the fuck. It's not very well paced at all. So that was another thing. But it has quite a few fun moments in it, and the character of Dr. West saves the film for me. So still worth checking out. Number 11, we got The Town That Dreaded Sundown, the original. This is another like based on true events, although I think this one kind of is. But this is a movie about these true events, supposedly, in Texarkana, about this killer who got away. And you got the conductor from Terror Train in here. You got some goofy cops in here, like the goofy cop in Black Christmas. That's who he reminded me of. He's just, the typical goofy cop, the doofus. He was pretty funny. I like the killer mask in this movie. It reminds me of course, Jason in Part 2, except better looking. This one looks a lot better. And I like some of the creative kills. When you're using the trombone or whatever that instrument is. I'm not in band or anything, so I wouldn't know. I think it's the trombone, right? Saxophone? What is it? I don't know my instruments that well. I think it's the trombone. So, and I think it's unique that this killer uses a gun for the most part. He's always shooting people. This person, that person. He prefers to use a gun. That's different. Top 10. Number 10, we got Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. We got Ken Foree in here. Foree. I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch. This movie has a badass soundtrack. I love Ken Foree's character in this movie. He's the best part. Him fighting with Leatherface, shooting up the whole building. This movie just surprised me. I didn't know what to expect going into it. I've always heard bad things about it because of the MPAA. And yes, they did fuck this movie up pretty bad. But there's also some gruesome moments in it. Even though it is cut, there's lots of blood flying when the chick's getting killed up against a tree. I think this Leatherface is easily one of the scariest next to the remake. I really like this portrayal of Leatherface. This one's very straightforward. It's a very different tone from the second one. This franchise is really weird. It's like very serious, part 1, corny as hell, and annoying in part 2, and then very serious, straightforward in part 3. So this franchise is all over the place because then you get to part 4 and it's weird again. So yeah, this franchise is very weird. It's like a roller coaster of emotions and tones. But yeah, I like Ken Foree easily, best part. I love that he survives somehow at the end because of reshoots, obviously. And then, most of the movie, especially the first half, is very just generic and repetitive of the first movie. You got all these homages to the previous films and references. You got the armadillo. It's the same story basically, but it's got an awesome chainsaw, so hey, I liked it. Number 9, we got Insidious Chapter 3. This has an awesome scare in it with the car scare, the woman who gets hit by the car. It's a very cool car stunt. It's a very shocking moment, but the movie overall just kind of feels unnecessary. It's like an unnecessary prequel story that doesn't really explain things that need to be explained. It just doesn't feel necessary at all. It's very generic. It's just like the other ones. It's still a very well made movie, well acted, well shot, everything, but just kind of generic. The same thing that we've seen before. It's just like part one and part two, except now it's a prequel. You get Lin Shaye, they explore her character a little bit more, you get to know her a little bit better, and I think it's a decent movie overall. I liked it. So number 9, Insidious Chapter 3. Number 8, we got Triangle. This came out about 10 years ago, and this is basically a repeat movie where this woman's in a Groundhog's Day. And it twists. It's revealed like 30 minutes in, so it's very obvious that there's a Groundhog's Day plot going on about this woman who, you know, she has to keep reliving this horrible day for reasons. I don't want to spoil too much, but I would check it out. It's a very interesting movie, and it's got some very eerie visuals within it, but it's a head scratcher definitely. But check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. You can watch it right now. Number 7, we got Body Bags. This is a horror anthology by Tobe Hooper and John Carpenter. You got 3 different stories, 2 of them very similar. One about a hair transplant with bad side effects, one about an eye transplant with bad side effects with Mark Hamill. And the first story I like the best. It's the slasher one where this chick becomes like a gas attendant, and then she finds out that the person who gave her that job wasn't really supposed to be there. That guy was a killer. The person who was really working there is dead, played by Ted Raimi, right? Or Sam Raimi. So yeah, this movie was fun. I liked it. I liked all the in between the stories, like when it cut back to John Carpenter as a morgue. I thought that was cool, and then the way it ends, you find out like, oh, he's a dead guy walking around. It's just fun. It was fun to see John Carpenter actually have such a long on-screen time presence in the film. You don't usually see that with John Carpenter. He's not usually in his movies. He's in The Fog for one brief scene, but I had never seen him before. So it was fun to see him. And Mark Hamill does a good job in here, but I just felt like the third story was just kind of generic and repetitive of the second story. It's like, we're doing this story again? What's next? A penis transplant where the penis has a bad side effect and it starts killing people, evil people? Like, what's the next fucking thing that's going to go wrong? Next up, we got the original Night of the Demons. And the best part of this movie is Linnea Quigley. She is awesome. She's beautiful. She shows her boobs once again. Except now, spoiler, I'm sure you've seen it, she sticks lipstick in her titty, and it's just so hilarious. It stands out. It is just the moment where you're like, this is awesome. It's like, just that alone. Like, just put that in my horror opening, you know? Put that in my montage. But, yeah, other than that, I mean, it's got a Halloween feel to it. They go to a haunted house. The atmosphere there is pretty good. There's some cool shots in the movie with like the mirrors shattered on the floor and the reflections in it. There's some practical work that's kind of neat for what they had. It was a low budget, so I can't harp on it too much. The acting's not that good, and the characters weren't that likable. They're like over the top dicks, so it was kind of hard for me to get behind any of them. But yeah, it was a fun watch. I enjoyed it. Next up, we got The Prophecy, or just Prophecy. This came out in 1979. It is not the Christopher Walken shit. This is about basically Man Bear Pig. If you've seen South Park, that's what this is. It's got this big old mutated bear, and there's this sawmill or some kind of plant that's leaking chemicals into the water, and this guy from the EPA has to go investigate. And you got this guy from The Thing, you got the girlfriend from Rocky, Adrian. This is a PG horror movie. This is like in the 70s with Jaws. Because it's not a slasher, it could get away with certain things that other movies that are horror wouldn't. Because that was the justification in the 70s, was like, oh, it's a creature killing people, so we can make it PG. Because it's not like children can imitate this. I think that's their weird ass. That was their logic back then. Jaws is PG because it's a shark killing people. But if it was a man out there ripping people's limbs off and you saw all the same shit, it would be rated R. Whatever. The MPAA just they're just I'll never get their logic. So yeah, this movie is just weird. It was just funny as hell. There's so many weird things in it. There's this sleeping bag kill that is just hilarious. I could not stop laughing. It was just the best thing. It's why it's so high up. It was just a sleeping bag kill. It was hilarious. So check out The Prophecy. Number 4, we got Insidious: The Last Key. An underrated sequel in my opinion. This one does not get nearly as much love as part 3 does for some reason. I like Specs and Tucker in this movie. They were very hilarious. This takes a different tone than the other ones. It tries to get a little bit more funny. While, Lynn Shay and what she does, that's all serious. But when you're with Tucker and Specs, they're hilarious. They're back and forth. They're competition with the girls. They're trying to get this girl. They just brought so much life to the movie, and I loved their characters. They were making me laugh, and that is why it's so high up. There's a neat little twist in this movie with a character who's the real bad guy in the movie, not just a ghost. So I like the change up. It's like different change of pace. You got Arkin from The Collector and The Collection. That was nice to see him. Some of the humor was misplaced, but overall, I had a good laugh. So Insidious: The Last Key, all the way up here. Top 3, baby. What's it gonna be? We got April Fool's Day. This is a movie that has a cop-out ending that I really like because it actually makes sense. It's called April Fool's Day. You got characters pranking each other the entire movie. Spoiler alert. I hope you've seen it. The end, they're not all dead. It's all a giant prank. And then even the movie ends with a prank. Another prank. As if you didn't get enough of it, they give you one more at the very end with the throat slit. It's just prank after prank after prank. So I just liked it. It stands out because up until that twist and that reveal, despite how predictable it might be, if it wasn't the twist and it was actually people getting killed, it would just be off-camera kills. It would be a typical, dumb, bland slasher with nothing to offer. Not even boobs. The characters, the cast, the dialogue, it all worked for me, and that is why it is so high up. April Fool's Day, a movie that I will probably revisit every April 1st because it just goes so well with the holiday. Number 2, we got Bad Moon. The werewolf in this movie was played by Ken Kersinger. That was pretty neat to see. And I like that it's mostly practical work, the werewolf. But then there's like some moments, like the transformation, when you actually see it, it starts to get like CGI, starts to not look too good. But what I like most about this movie is that this isn't a werewolf movie where it's human protagonist versus the werewolf. It's dog, the family dog versus the werewolf. I loved that. I loved the dog in this movie so much, and I'm not even a dog person. I'm just not. I don't hate dogs as much as I used to, but I'll just never have a dog. I'm not a dog person. I'm not. I don't care for them. But in this movie, they made me fall in love with this dog. I was like, fuck, that dog's awesome. I want that dog. So yeah, I just love, there's so much subtle humor in the movie. There's gore, this chick at the beginning, you get some boobs, you get the sex scene at the beginning, this chick just gets ripped, and she's just getting her face like clawed open. There's practical effects in this movie, unlike some of the other movies I was talking about earlier. This one actually has some gore, some on-screen carnage, some werewolf carnage, and the only thing I could like nitpick is that the main actor and the main actress, the brother and sister, I felt like they weren't that good. Like I feel like if you had even better actors in those roles, this would be fucking awesome. But I didn't care for those people. I don't know. I wasn't crazy about their performances. But the dog was awesome. He was the best actor in the whole movie. Was just the dog. I loved him. Number 1, the one I had the most fun with, the one that is easily the most rewatchable out of all these movies, and that is Reanimator by Stuart Gordon. Rest in peace. He died recently. That's sad. This movie is just wild. It's very quickly paced. It's got all kinds of iconic moments in it. The Dr. Hill scene going down on Barbara Crampton, the severed head, it just gets wild and wacky. You got all kinds of on-screen practical effects, John Carl Buechler effects, awesome stuff. The only thing that I nitpicked, you can hear in my review, so I won't be a broken record here. You can check out my review and you'll hear all my thoughts. But I thought this movie was pretty fun, very entertaining. Not hilarious, I didn't laugh too much, but it was still fun and it kept me engaged. I really like the characters in this movie. Barbara Crampton is stunning as always. You got some gratuitous nudity, got some gore, some cow intestines at the end. It's just a fun ride. So it is a cult classic that is worth checking out and definitely worth buying. If you haven't seen it, you need to get on that. So Reanimator, easily my number one. That is my ranking. What is your favorite movie from this list? Put it in the comments below. What is your least favorite movie from this list? Let me know also. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. If you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button, share with all your friends, and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, Auf Wiedersehen.